I've been watching your podcast for just over a year. After doing strong lifts 5x5 and hitting a progression wall, as well as trying it says other non-NLP programs, I figured I would give starting strength a shot. Well, that's charitable of you, right? In December, I bought the blue book, gray book, barbell prescription. This is like a month and a half ago. I deloaded and focused on the form of the exercise as is taught in your YouTube videos and books. I've already progressed past my PR for strong lifts 5x5. That's in the course of a month and a half. Isn't that fascinating? As a fan of your experience in life, I noticed that people credit both strong lifts and your program as being based on Bill Starr's strength programs. But sifting through the blue book, I noticed that Bill Starr is mentioned as someone you worked with, but I couldn't find a mention of his influence on the program itself. Is there a story worth telling there? Would love to hear it on one of the podcasts. Well, here's your lucky day. Giancarlo or Giampero GP. Italian guy, right? Probably an innocent Italian guy, not in the mafia. They all, we North Americans have somehow arrived at the conclusion that everybody in Italy's in the mafia, and I mean that's physically impossible, right? I mean, I think so. Right. So let's discuss this. All right, here's the situation with this strong lifts 5x5 thing. When and I had to discuss this before, as it just pisses me off at a low level. It pisses me off at a low level because people are this is just the way people are. Been demonstrated over and over again that people will take your shit from you. All right. Now, we published the first edition of Starting Strength in June of 2005. Within about 6 months, this guy that runs this thing out of the Netherlands had published a book from us. I mean, we sent him the book. We know he was reading the book. And then this 5x5 thing shows up, which is kind of a shitty version of our programming. He contacted us, wanted us to give him some free stuff in exchange for promoting the program. And we said no. And he went ahead and promoted all this stuff on his website, and lots of people. He's probably made more money off this than we have. I mean, quite a few times over. And he's been quite successful with it. There's been you can't, say that the guy's not done real well using our shit, because he's done real well using our shit. But he used our shit, not Bill Starr's. All right. Bill was a good friend of mine, good friends with lots of people. Those of us that were good friends with Bill back 30 years ago are all still friends with each other. We're all, related to each other through Bill Starr. He was a very important guy in most of our lives, for better or for worse. He was just our friend, and he was quite a character. He was an influential guy. He's one of these personalities that you just can't avoid, right? But Bill's programming, we don't have to guess about what it was. His book was The Strongest Shall Survive. Well, if you want to read it, you're going to have to borrow one from somebody that
we looked on Amazon, and they're going for $400.
$400 for Strongest Shall Survive. Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing. because it's out of print. And we have been unable to get in touch with the copyright holder, and it will therefore remain out of print for the foreseeable future. If you want a copy of it, you want to know what Bill said, then you buy that book and read it. Bill's programming was remarkably sparse. In The Strongest Shall Survive, he devotes, I think, 2 pages to the squat. He was not a technique coach. That's not he did not analyze the technique of the squat. He did not coach technique on the squat. I remember very clearly him standing there with me while I was squatting and not having my technique analyzed or mentioned at any point during the entirety of the time that I associated with Bill in the gym. Technique squatting, the coaching of technique that we do in starting strength was my development in working with people in the gym for decades. And Bill had nothing to do with that whatsoever. I developed the technique part of the starting strength model. And as far as the programming of that is behind starting strength is concerned, I developed that too. The novice linear progression was entirely a function of my experience in the gym, having clients come in a completely detrained fashion and trying to maximize their time in the gym in terms of the results they'd get, so they'd stay with the membership. Yes, it was just naked greed, obviously, is what motivated that. But as far as the programming is concerned, where you come with the 5 pounds of workout programming, that was my deal. That was not Bill's. Bill's programming, as detailed in The Strongest Shall Survive, was the program that we included in the gray book under heavy, light, medium as the intermediate level programming, because what his program wanted you to do was a PR 1 day a week. He used sets of 5 all the way from warm-ups to work sets, and one day was a heavy day, next day was a light day, and next day was a medium day. And it's right there in Strongest Shall Survive. You don't have to guess about where this came from. That was the programming that he used in his book, Strongest Shall Survive. The only other book he wrote about training was Defying Gravity, which was a book about the actual competitive aspects of Olympic weightlifting and powerlifting. It had nothing to do with training. It was about how to perform at a meet. In neither of those books was anything remotely similar to our novice progression ever even discussed. It was not discussed with me personally with Bill. It was not discussed in anything he wrote. None of his articles the long history of his publication with various monthly magazines and in the end websites were discussed the novice progression in the sense that we have developed it. To say that strong lifts 5 by 5 and ours, what do we call this? The novice linear progression, starting strength novice linear progression. Say that either one of those were developed based on Bill Starr stuff is patently absurd. There was nothing in either of those two programs that came directly from Bill Starr. None of it. I mean, yeah, we squatted. Yeah, we deadlifted. We bench pressed. But Bill thought in Strongest Shall Survive that the big 3 were the squat, the bench press, and the power clean. He didn't even include deadlifts as an important part of his programming. He encouraged us to do them, of course, but that was because we were going to powerlifting meets and not Olympic weightlifting meets. I hear this from time to time. I keep hearing that our material is completely derivative from Bill Starr. And those of you that want to say that, y'all go ahead. You're full of shit. You don't know. I was there. You weren't. Right? And I know where all this stuff came from and where it didn't come from. There's just some people that can't stand the idea that I developed some of this programming stuff independent of anybody that came before me. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm real bright, but it does recognize the fact that a whole bunch of people hadn't been thinking very hard about this until we started publishing this stuff ourselves, right? It's not that I'm smart, it's that you're stupid. Surely you see the difference there, right? But, this is this strong list 5x5 shit and starting strength having been derived from Bill's work is just demonstrably not true. And if it's all there in Strongest Shall Survive, look it up.